Hi everyone, I'm here today at the Oddfellows Cemetery in East Los Angeles. It's a pretty interesting cemetery. It's an older cemetery, as you can tell by these really interesting and beautiful headstones. And buried here in a niche garden is Ronnie Howard, also known as Veronica Lopez. She's famous for one thing. She helped solve one of the biggest murder mysteries in American history. Can you guess which one? Well, friends, thanks for joining me on my trips to find the strangest, weirdest, and most interesting cemeteries, grave sites, memorials, and final resting places of both the famous and the infamous people who in some way, good or bad, have touched our lives. So I don't know if you would just call it luck or timing or fate or destiny, or just being at the right place at the right time, or maybe the wrong place at the wrong time. But Ronnie made history. It will always be remembered as the woman who helped solve one of the biggest crimes of the 20th century. Even though you probably don't recognize her name, I'm sure you're familiar with the Tate LaBianca Manson murders of 1969. In 1969, she was serving time at Blvd Institute here in Los Angeles when she got a new roommate. And her roommate just happened to be Susan Atkins, a member of the Manson family who was involved in the murders of Sharon Tate and the LaBiancas. At the time of the murders in August 1969, they really didn't know who committed the crime. So Roman Polanski, Sharon Tate's husband, and others put up a reward for information that would help solve the crime. So once Ronnie's cellmate told her in graphic detail everything that happened involving the murders, Ronnie went to the authorities and told her story and claimed half of the reward. The other half went to a young boy who apparently found one of the murder weapons. Sadly, 10 years later, Ronnie was kidnapped and beaten and later died from her injuries. Just 10 years after the Manson murders. She died in 1979, and she's buried here in an East Garden, just right by that, the really nice shade tree right there. Oddfellows Cemetery is pretty small, and there's just one street that makes a large loop from the front gate. To find Ronnie Howard's gravesite, you drive about 3/4 of the way around the loop, and you'll see it on the left-hand side. It's this triangle section here with a very small retaining wall that goes around it. This section is called the Garden of Faith, and it's very easy to find her final resting place. Her Find a Grave memorial page also has a GPS, which makes it even easier to find. The gravestone just shows her married name, but she was born Veronica Howard, and her nickname was Ronnie. It's weird how one random moment in time can define your entire life. Oddfellows Cemetery is located very close to downtown Los Angeles. It's just right off of the 5 freeway, which you can hear and you can even see it in the distance. I know many of you like to see what the cemetery looks like, so from the front gate, I'm going to take the street that loops around back to the front gate, and I'm going to drive to Ronnie Howard's grave so you can see where it's located. And as we drive, I'll tell you a couple of other things that this cemetery is famous for. One of the things is that it specializes in the cremation of obese people. I never even knew that was a thing. I just assumed that all crematoriums were the same size, but apparently not. And this particular cemetery is well known for being the place where people who are large or obese, especially over 400 pounds, are sent if they want to be cremated here in the Southern California area. Now, I'm not sure. Maybe they receive people from out of the Southern California area, but I know that here in the Los Angeles area, this is one of the only places I think you can go if you want to be cremated and you're obese. The other thing this cemetery is famous for is a 1985 Supreme Court case involving the remains of more than 16,000 fetuses. Apparently, the fetuses were found in a shipping container in Woodland Hills, California in 1982, and it took 3 years to resolve the dispute over the burial. The dispute went to the Supreme Court, who eventually ruled that the remains were to be buried in a non-religious ceremony. President Ronald Reagan at the time wrote the eulogy, which was delivered on October 7th, 1985, by the local Board of Supervisors, Michael Antonovich. The fetuses were buried in unmarked graves in a donated section of land within the cemetery. This is the Garden of Faith section here to the left, where the ashes of Ronnie Howard are buried. There were 2 other people that I wanted to visit today as well, but after being here for a few hours, I haven't been able to find them, so I'm going to have to come back another time. That happens, quite often, where it's just either the GPS is incorrect or the information is incorrect, or sometimes the person's not even really buried in the cemetery where the information online says they are buried. So, I hate to spend hours and hours only to find out later that they weren't even in this cemetery. So I just have to go do a little bit more research, and I'll be back at some point in the future to find these 2 individuals who I think you'll find very interesting, but unfortunately I wasn't able to find them today. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, leave a comment, and of course don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And as always, thanks for joining me, and I'll hope to see you next time.